How's it going, everybody? I'm Andrew Robson. Thanks for tuning in. This is Rakuyo's Deciduous Bonsai channel, and today we're going to talk about birch. Why birch is not often used for bonsai. Why it's one of my favorite species that we've been kind of pioneering here in the garden at Rakuyo. And some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way to help you have success with birch in your bonsai practice. Now, before we dive into some fun aspects about birch, I just wanted to say a few things about the display that we have set up here in the tokonoma. This birch tree was recently worked here in the studio at Rakuyo, and so whenever you work a tree, it's always nice to display it so you can live with that work for a few days before it goes back out to the garden. We talk a lot about that in our video on why displaying a pre-bonsai can be helpful for your bonsai practice. So go check out that video if you haven't seen it already. Now, this tree, we recently worked on it. It's nice to have it here in the studio, but I also wanted to set up a display to celebrate the winter solstice just before Christmas. And so using a birch to celebrate the solstice was a really fun thing for me because birch trees are historically associated with sunlight. Birch is a pioneer species, and so when you have a freshly cleared area, birch is one of the first things to kind of come in and take over that space before it eventually gets outcompeted by other trees like beech and whatnot. And so birch is closely associated with the sun. So I thought displaying this with a sun scroll and celebrating the solstice would be kind of a fun little display to put together. We displayed this with a okimono, which is a display object, and that okimono is a nice high quality carved wooden deer from Japan. It puts us in kind of a more natural kind of setting. Now, this is the oldest birch that I have here in the garden at Rakuyo. It's a Betula pendula, or a silver birch or European white birch. And this tree, I love it because of its rough textured bark. Now, there's different types of beautiful birch bark out there. This one has a rough, kind of craggly bark, similar to what you might see in a pine. But then there's also, of course, the paper birches, which have a much more kind of peely, exfoliating bark. And that's one of the things I love about birch, is it just gives that nice variety and contrast to the different bark types that we have in a deciduous garden. So many of the trees that we work with, maples, beech, hornbeam, they kind of have this more smooth bark. You do see some exfoliating plants like Stewartia, like Chinese quince, like crepe myrtle, which have this kind of nice mosaic kind of pattern. But you don't see something really rough like this very often. You don't see something peely like a paper birch. And so these different bark types really give us beautiful contrast, beautiful variety in the garden, and really kind of spice things up a little bit. All right, so here's a few tips that can help you with your birch bonsai. There's 60 different types of birch species. Many of them have not been explored for bonsai. I've only worked with a few here at Rakuyo, but there's probably one for you. And if you have a tree in your neighborhood, you might even get a lot of volunteers to get some nice free seedlings to play with. So the type of birch that you have, we can't definitively say which type works best for bonsai right now, just because we haven't done that exploration yet. We're on the pioneering stage where we're trying to do that. But a really good one is this Betula pendula, which there are several old examples of. Now, birch, the three things that you got to keep in mind: they like a lot of water, they like a lot of fertilizer, and they do not like shade. You have to really be good with your watering. You can't let these get overly dry, or else they will just ditch and lose branches. You have to keep a lot of nutrition pumping through these plants. These plants grow hard and fast. And so if the tree's not getting proper nutrition, it can kill off a branch pretty easily. And lastly, shade. If these are getting too much shade, meaning, there's a branch on the inside of the canopy that's just not getting any sunlight, there's no light penetration from the canopy, then it's going to kill off that branch. And so we have to be really cautious about not underwatering, we have to be really cautious about not under-fertilizing, and we have to be really cautious about keeping up with our outer canopy defoliation, or that partial defoliation, in order to let light in to allow those inner branches to get strong. If you can do those three things, then that will really help you grow birch a lot more successfully, and they won't be known as these lossy plants to you anymore. All right, this is a birch that I've been growing for the last 6 or 7 years. I started this as seedlings from that I collected growing in the garden. They were volunteers. You'll notice if you have a birch tree in the neighborhood, you're probably going to get a lot of seedlings kind of growing around. And so if you want to play with some birch, if you want a low investment bonsai, this tree cost me $0. I pulled some weeds in the garden and now we have a bonsai. So I took those young birch, I put them through a tile, and I grew this nice clump style, or kabudachi. And that clump style is really kind of yielding itself to a nice bonsai form. One of the nice things about multi-trunk plants being a clump style or a bonsai forest is that you have multiple trunks contributing to the silhouette. So if I just had one trunk in here, it would take a lot longer versus having these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish trunks in here contributing to this overall silhouette. It just yields to a faster product. So if you're doing bonsai, if you're really anxious about how much time bonsai takes, then do a multi-trunk plant, do a forest, because that just yields you a faster product a lot sooner. So those are a few things that I love about birch. We love the bark. We love the contrast that they give to the garden. We love using trees that everybody knows. A birch tree is such an iconic tree. And so having that in a bonsai form, it really speaks to people. It's a tree that we see. If you live in northern climates, it's a tree that we see when we're out in the wild. And so it's just fun to have them around as bonsai. So fertilize them a lot, water them a lot. Do a lot of work to keep the light penetrating in. Don't let things get shaded out, otherwise they'll just die. And if you can do all of those things, you'll have a lot of fun with birch. Thanks for tuning in today. This is RAKUYO's Deciduous Bonsai channel. If you like birch, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel so we can keep you up to date with all of this great deciduous content moving forward. Have a great rest of your day. See you next time.